Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to College Football Red Zone. We find ourselves here on a brisk Sunday night here in the Buckeye State as, we're coming back here recapping what was truly an incredible weekend that we've seen over in the college football landscape. And we're really starting to see that overall picture of the college football playoff really start to unfold right before our eyes. And dare I say it, we might even begin to see, are we seeing teams, starting to get to a path where, they're getting ready to lock themselves into a college football playoff spot or locking themselves in the conference championships, bowl games, all of that postseason stuff really starting to unfold. And we're getting a clear picture right in front of our eyes in real time. And that's what today is all about. In today's video, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look throughout the entire country and really talk about, what are those teams that are still out there right now that still have a realistic shot of making the college football playoff, whether it is trying to make it in by an at-large spot or making it in for the 5 automatic bids that are available for this 12-team playoff in the second year of its format. So very excited to jump into that, and really am happy that we're really getting into the grind right here in November. We're really starting to see that separation of contenders and pretenders. With that being said, guys, before we go ahead and jump into it, before I show this updated graphic, gonna need you to do a couple of things real quick, and this is regardless of whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitch as of right now. So if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button, as well as hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new. Doing both of those things only takes a couple of seconds. There's a lot of you that watch my content that aren't subscribed to the channel. That needs to change. And then if you're watching this on Twitch right now, make sure you go ahead and hit that follow button. Really would appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into what we got going on here. And that is the peripheral who is still alive in terms of the college football playoff. So we'll go ahead, we're going to pull it up here now. So this is what the updated graphic looks like as we enter week number 12 of the college football season. Really only a few weeks left in the college football season. Many of these teams, have played most of their regular season games. So let's go ahead and talk about it, right? How about we start at the very top? We have our first CFP lock of the 2025 college football season. Congratulations to the Indiana Hoosiers who do secure their 10th win. A lot sweatier than I think maybe a lot of Indiana fans would have really liked to see. But they find a way to get it done. They find a way to win that game really in hard-stomping fashion. Such a painful loss for Penn State. Penn State needing to win out now in order just to make a bowl game, mind you, right? So Penn State needs to win out from this point on. Indiana's in a great spot. They're 10-0. 10 wins in the Big Ten or 10 wins in the SEC. I have seen that as okay, that's more than enough to make it into the college football playoff if you can win at least 10 games and you're from those two conferences. So that's why Indiana is officially locked in. They're going to be our first lock team of the 2025 college football season. Still 11 spots left to play for. All the automatic bids still in play as well. But now we get into what we have in terms of the rest of the tier maker, right? So we have two teams that are entering in that almost lock category, that second tier that you see on screen. So Ohio State and Texas A&M, they both have 9 wins on the year thus far. So why they're almost locked and why they haven't necessarily secured themselves into the college football playoff just yet is just you got to think about it from the aspect of if these two teams were to lose like 3 games in a row, the CFP is going to have a hard time committing to putting those two teams in the college football playoff, especially two teams that will be on 3-game losing streaks come Selection Sunday, right? So from that particular angle, that's why Ohio State and Texas A&M, those two teams are not yet locked in terms of making the college football playoff. Now, if they do win just one more game, then Ohio State and Texas A&M, they will officially clinch their way into the college football playoff, right? And so for Texas A&M, they'll have a noon game against South Carolina. They're a 17.5-point favorite over on ESPN Bet, where I'm looking at right now. That's going to be a noon kickoff on ESPN. And then we'll have a 7:30 kickoff. The Ohio State Buckeyes going to be taking on UCLA. And UCLA, they're going to be the ones having to make that cross-country road trip to play up against that Ohio State Buckeyes team. They're a 31.5-point favorite. UCLA needing to win out in order to secure bowl eligibility. Can they do that? That's going to be a really tall task, but that's the path, for Ohio State and Texas A&M. If they win their respective games, then they're going to be locked into the CFP. And then it's going to be a matter of now, can they work their way into, getting that first round bye, right? As a top 4 seed. Then, it continues to be, continue to take care of business for the rest of the regular season and then go from there. So that's Ohio State and Texas A&M. They are going to be your two teams that are almost locked in. They just need one more win. If they can get that one more win at any point in the regular season, they're going to be in, no questions asked. Now we'll go ahead and switch things, going over to the opposite end. Let's go. We did eliminate a few teams this week in terms of these 3 teams have no path whatsoever in terms of making the college football playoff. So 3 of these teams, they are all from the power conferences this week. Northwestern is the first one. So for the Northwestern Wildcats, they just suffered their 4th loss of the season. One of those losses is to Tulane, right? So that's an American Conference loss. And then you're also talking about Northwestern from the aspect of, I believe they now also have 3 losses in conference play, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just looking it up just for like my own sanity. Yeah, so Northwestern has 3 losses, and we haven't seen anybody in this era of conference realignment make the conference championship game with 3 conference losses or more. So Northwestern, you're certainly not making it in as an at-large. Even if they do win out 8-4, just not going to cut it. And then those 3 losses that we also see in the Big Ten Conference for Northwestern, they don't have a path to the Big Ten title game as well. So Northwestern is cooked from that aspect. TCU is another team that we did eliminate this past weekend. Now, TCU, they are coming off of a heartbreaking loss at home to Iowa State. And that's really been the story. You flip those one-possession games, and for those one-possession games, you're talking about, barely losing to Arizona State, barely losing to Iowa State. But you flip those 2 games, you're talking about a 8-1 TCU. You're talking about them as a firm contender for the Big 12, and possibly adding into this concept of the Big 12 getting multiple teams into the CFP. But the TCU, no, that has not happened. They suffered their 3rd loss as well. All those losses did also come in conference play as well. So again, TCU doesn't really have a path to the title game unless there's a major amount of chaos. But I mean, you're asking for things so catastrophic at this point that TCU, that you gotta stick a fork in them at this point in the year. So TCU, they're as good as done. Their 3rd loss of the season being suffered at the hands of Iowa State and home. And then the last team that we did eliminate. Now, this team was probably left around longer than maybe most people would have expected, but LSU, I did eliminate them this week. They have suffered their 4th loss of the year. All of those losses did take place, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in SEC play. Just a lost year for the LSU Tigers. They've lost 3 games in a row now. Granted, all against quality competition, right? Losing to Ole Miss, losing to Vanderbilt, and then now losing to Texas A&M and Alabama as well. These are all teams that still continue to be ranked. So LSU is really that peripheral, beat who you're supposed to beat, and then you're also the the peripheral lose who you're supposed to lose to. So they close the year out with Arkansas and Western Kentucky. They'll probably win both those games. They'll go to a mediocre bowl before losing to Oklahoma. But to be honest with you, LSU is cooked. They are done for the year, right? So the LSU Tigers have officially been eliminated. Now, working our way up a little bit more, and I did make a little bit of a change from last week. So last week I had North Texas eliminated, but really after sitting through and looking at it, I did upgrade North Texas to the win out and get a little bit of help. So this is what I had for North Texas. And the reason why I eliminated them in the first place, it was after the USF game. They lost by 30 to USF. So I didn't think North Texas would really be taken seriously as a CFP contender at this point in the year. But since then, we did see a little bit of chaos, right? We saw Memphis go down. We saw Tulane go down. They were blown out by UTSA. Memphis now has a 2nd loss as well, ironically, to Tulane as well. So there's been enough chaos to where, North Texas, they're still right in the thick of things in the American, even though they do have that 30-point loss against USF. So I did move them up to the win out and get help, but they don't necessarily control their own destiny as well. And that's even if they find a way to beat USF, because James Madison is still very much available. And in my opinion, I actually think James Madison, who you have here in this must win out period, and that's more for the G5 teams needing to handle business. James Madison, I have them as my best G5 team right now, and that's evident by my ballot that I submitted. I have James Madison inside my top 20 personally. I think James Madison, really good football team, might be slightly underlooked because of that perceived strength of schedule. But here's the thing: James Madison has dominated the majority of the competition, and their only loss is to a competent Louisville team. Louisville very much still alive. We'll talk about them in a second. So that's why we added North Texas. They're still here in this win out and get helped here. Still a few more teams in here as well. Kennesaw State, they're going to need a lot of help at this point. You need some carnage in the American. You need James Madison to probably drop a couple of games throughout the remainder of the regular season and maybe in the Sun Belt title game as well. Kennesaw State obviously needing to win out as well, but they're not completely dead. It's just the path is very, very convoluted. You need the American champ to be, at least a 3-loss team. But they're definitely not dead. Kennesaw State have an incredible season. And then SMU, they can't get an at-large bid. They have 3 losses at this point. But SMU very much alive for the ACC title, which leads us to, some of the newcomers that we have in terms of our teams that not only need to win out just to get at-large consideration at this point. So if these teams were to win out, that's not even to guarantee you into the college football playoff. That's just for you to get even considered at this point. So did add 5 new teams in here. So Missouri Tigers are in here. They suffered their 3rd loss of the year. They were blown out by Texas A&M. Matt Solers, man, he had his first start taking over for Bro Pine Brula, and it didn't look good. It didn't look good at all. Now, Texas A&M is a really good football team. That's a top 5 team in the nation. But at the same time, Missouri, at this point of the year, you really need to make sure that you win out, because there is a path possibly for a 9-3 team to get in. We saw this last year where Alabama at 9-3 would have gotten in if it wasn't for Clemson upsetting SMU in the ACC title game. Now, it's a workable path for Missouri. They do have Mississippi State at home. They got Arkansas on the road. They do have Oklahoma on the road, though. So it's not going to be, that game's not going to be the easiest to win. But, for SEC standards, that is a workable path that the Missouri Tigers can work through. Iowa gets in here as well. That is their 3rd loss for the year for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And I really disagree with the assessment from the AP that Iowa should not be ranked. I strongly disagree with that. I still have Iowa in my top 20. I had them ranked 18. I think I just bumped them down a couple of spots on my personal ballot because, I mean, they went toe-to-toe with Oregon. Oregon, that team is, very close in their own right to, making the CFP. They need a couple more wins themselves to get in. But, Iowa honestly should have won that game if it wasn't for those last-minute heroics from Dante Moore and a last-second field goal. This team plays really tough, and they do have a competent offense that they can use as well. And, their only other losses is, Iowa State. And, Iowa State's at least going bowling, but then Indiana as well. I mean, Indiana's in the top 5 as well. This is a really good football team in Iowa. Now, they're going to need a win out at this point in order to get in. They do have USC, I believe, this upcoming weekend on the road. So that's going to be a must-win for Iowa in order to get in. Washington is in here as well. They're not done, but they got a lot of work to do in order to get in. Washington also suffering their third loss of the year. And granted, their first couple losses, not bad losses by any means. You lost to Ohio State. No one has been able to beat Ohio State. They're the number 1 team in the nation for a reason. They also lost to Michigan, and Michigan still controls its own playoff destiny as well at this point in the year. Losing to Wisconsin, man. Oh, buddy. Losing to Wisconsin. That is a brutal thing to do. It's a really bad loss. But at the same time, Wisconsin not completely dead. They do have some opportunities to boost up the resume so that can get back into the thick of things. They do have Oregon to end the year. And then it's also going to be one of those things where they're going to need to dominate against Purdue, dominate against UCLA as well, and then find a way to beat Oregon at home to end your regular season. They're not done by any means, but, it's not looking great for Washington at this time, but they're not done yet. And then the 2 teams from the ACC, Virginia and Louisville, they find themselves on here right now, both with upset losses. So we did see Virginia lose to Wake Forest this past weekend, and then we did also see Louisville lose to Cal this past weekend as well. So now you find yourselves in a spot where, you get to 10-2, you might be considered for that large bid if certain things go their way. More likely, you're going to need to win the ACC, and even then, well, actually, if those 2 teams, handle business, they'll get in. There is a path, though. I do want to mention this for the Duke Blue Devils. They're eliminated in here, and that's even if they end up winning the ACC. And I think that's evident with their loss against UConn. So walk this through with me real fast. So what if Duke wins the ACC? They're 9-4. There's now a path where you're talking about, does James Madison and a American champion, do they both get in because Duke wins the ACC? I think that's a really fascinating question. And honestly, I think as long as James Madison, the American Conference champ, they both handle business, I think you got to put those 2 teams in over Duke. So if you're a G5 fan and you're rooting for multiple G5 teams to get in, you're rooting for Duke to win the ACC. Now, more realistically, Virginia and Louisville, they still control their ACC destiny, and maybe they can get some lucky bounces towards the end of the regular season to where, maybe they can get some at-large consideration. But, again, those losses taking them this late in the year, that is a hard pill to swallow. So that's what you're looking at right now for Louisville and Virginia at this time. Now, we still have a bunch of teams that, they haven't worked themselves into the lock status, but they are completely safe at this time. Georgia safe, I think, is the only team left in the ACC that is still completely okay as of right now. They only have the 1 loss as of this time. And so if Georgia Tech does find a way to win out, and that's going to be a taller task because you do have Georgia to end the later season, but you get to 11-1, you get that win against Georgia. I think Georgia Tech is in, regardless of what happens in the ACC title game. I think that is very real. Georgia Tech still controls its own destiny, even from an at-large perspective. BYU did get its first loss of the year, but that loss is to Texas Tech. So I think BYU and Texas Tech are still both perfectly fine as of right now as well. Both teams were to win out. They meet in a conference championship once again, and they're both 11-1. I think you see BYU and Texas Tech both making it into the CFP. I don't think, if we're leaving 11-1 teams out in a 12-team playoff, honestly, what are we even doing, right? That's really how I feel in that spectrum. Big Ten has a few teams that are still completely safe at this time. So we are seeing Indiana lock in a playoff berth. Ohio State on the verge of doing that. But a few other teams that, either have just one or two loss and they handle business, they'll get in. Oregon just has the one loss, and they're actually in a pretty good spot right now. They're sitting at 8-1. So the rest of their schedule, you got Minnesota, and then you got USC and Washington. So if Oregon, wins the Minnesota game, and then they split USC and Washington, I think Oregon will get in at 10-2. You do also have USC. Now, USC, a little bit more straightforward for them. For them to be a lock, I think USC's got to win out. It's going to be a tougher road for them. Hosting Iowa, on the road against Oregon as well. And then you got UCLA, which is a rivalry game as well. And UCLA, yes, they're 3-6. Yes, they haven't looked great, but they've looked improved since the head coach firing. And, they made some changes in terms of offensive play calling. So rivalry game, you never know what can happen there. So watch out there for USC. And then Michigan Wolverines as well. Michigan right now, they do have a 7-2 record. They do need to win out in order to get in. First couple of games shouldn't be too bad. They got Northwestern and Maryland on the road. Those are very navigable wins. They're not necessarily like the most hostile environments that they're going to have to deal with. But they do have Ohio State coming into their building. Now, Michigan in recent memory does have Ohio State's number, but at the same time, you're looking at being an underdog even in your own building, though, at least as of this time. So very curious to see, if Michigan find a way to win out. They definitely control their own destiny, especially if they win that Ohio State game. They'll get in without even needing to get into the Big Ten championship game. So that's what it's looking like for the Big Ten. And then the SEC. The SEC is probably in the best position. Right now, they have 6 teams that they're not in an almost lock or in a lock category, but they still very certainly control their own destiny at this time. So obviously, got to start off with Alabama. We didn't know if we're going to see them in this particular spot, right? We saw them lose to Florida State at the beginning of the season, and we thought, oh no, is Kalen DeBoer the right guy for the job? Well, it turns out he's going to be perfectly fine. Now, Alabama, if they can beat Oklahoma this weekend, they're essentially a shoo-in at that point, because after the Oklahoma game, while the Auburn game is obviously going to be a rivalry, they also have Eastern Illinois. It's a FCS matchup. I hate that there is FCS matchups scheduled in the month of November. And again, I have no problem. If you want to play an FCS team in the beginning of the year, that's perfectly fine. To do this in the month of November, where we have seen from the CFP committee that they really take into account like these later results more so than what you do in late August, early September, or even in October. I actually do have a problem with that. I hope that's something that's fixed in the sport in the future. But, that's what Alabama's got going on. If they beat Oklahoma, they're going to essentially be a shoo-in because, Eastern Illinois, they're not beating Alabama. I just don't see that happening in this climate in college football, right? A few other teams that we have in here, Georgia. Man, has Georgia played with fire a handful of times, right? You're talking about, the Florida game, the Ole Miss game, the Auburn game, the Tennessee matchup as well. I mean, there are all these different times where, they've been in shootouts and playing in an assortment of different ways. They just find ways to win, even though it's not the vintage Georgia teams, like in the early 2020s that we've seen from Kirby Smart. This is still a damn good football team. So Georgia's sitting at 8-1 right now. If they beat Texas, they're probably going to be a shoo-in as well. They'll play Charlotte after this upcoming weekend. Not an FCS team, but Charlotte is they are in the basement of the American. And it's going to take an act from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for Charlotte to beat Georgia that weekend. So if they find a way to beat Texas, then Georgia could find themselves in as a 10-win team in the SEC. And that's even before accounting for what they could do against Georgia Tech. Oklahoma is still controls its own destiny as well at 7-2. Now, they do have a couple of big games. They do have an Alabama, to go on the road, go up against Alabama. Now, if they find a way to beat Alabama, though, for Oklahoma, road gets a little bit easier. They do need to win out, though, in order to be a lock. They got Missouri at home. Missouri, we've seen them with their third-string quarterback for the first time. They didn't look good against Texas A&M. And then LSU. LSU just looks like a team that feels a little bit checked out, to be honest with you. So And especially like with that being the last game of the year, I could see the road getting a lot easier for Oklahoma. That if they can win out, they'll be a lock. Ole Miss is very close to locking it in as well. 9-1. Actually, I missed this. So they actually should have been in the almost locked here. I'll make that adjustment before I post it on Twitter tonight. But Ole Miss at 9-1, because I forgot about them because they played Citadel, which is another thing that, again, don't love that they play against FCS opponents. But they host Florida this weekend. If they beat Florida, Ole Miss is a lock to make the college football playoff, man. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We will see Ole Miss in the playoff. It's just a matter of, where we're going to see them at, right? So that's what we got going on for Ole Miss. Ole Miss very close, actually, to getting it in. Texas is another team in here that controls its own destiny as of right now. The Texas Longhorns. Now, they got some tough games ahead. They have Georgia on the road, but then they also host Texas A&M to end the regular season as well. So Texas probably at the toughest path for, these SEC safe teams to get into that lock status. At the bare minimum, I think Texas is going to need to win at least 2 of 3. Like, you have to win the Arkansas game 100% if you're Texas. And then you got to find a way to, at the bare minimum, to split Georgia and Texas A&M. If you do want to be considered, obviously, if you win all 3, getting 2 ranked wins in the last 3 weeks of the regular season, you're going to be a shoo-in at that point. So that's Texas' path. They're going to have one more difficult path that they're going to have to deal with. And then Vanderbilt's 8-2. Listen, if Vanderbilt's a 10-win team in the SEC, you got to put them in. Just forget about the brand. Forget about what you see on the logo, right? 10 wins in the SEC. That is more than enough to make a 12-team college football playoff. Let's be real with ourselves. Now, they're only 2 losses. Not bad losses either. I mean, you saw them fight back against Texas. Might have been just like an onside recovery away, which they almost picked up in order to beat Texas. We almost could be talking about Vanderbilt at 9-1. And then, the Alabama game got away from them a little bit, but that was a game where, you take away turnovers. That's a much closer game. So they got Kentucky at home. They don't play them this week. They are on bye, but then they have Tennessee on the road to end the regular season. Tennessee have a decent amount to play for as well. Tennessee, a team that does need to win out. So what are we looking at in terms of teams that are still alive? And I need to do a little bit of mental math here real quick because I didn't figure out to count this. So we got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 31, 32, 33, 34. We got about 35 teams. We have 35 teams alive for really, actually, not counting Indiana. We got 34 teams alive for 11 playoff spots. This is going to get very heated very quickly. We've already seen that Discord, especially like who gets like the top G5 spot. It's been very feisty between American Conference fans and James Madison fans. And I mean, I've been there in the crosshairs as well. Going to be very exciting end for the regular season. But that's going to go ahead. That's going to wrap things up for right now. Definitely let me know down in the comments or let me know in the live chat. What you guys think about what we're looking at in terms of the college football playoff. Later on this week, what we do have planned, we are tentatively thinking about, like doing what we did a couple weeks ago, where we pick every single matchup that's going to be happening in week 12 at the FBS level, as well as once we do see the CFP rankings drop on Tuesday night, we'll go ahead and do a preview show on Wednesday. And we're going to go ahead and preview those top 25 matchups that are going to happen this upcoming weekend as well. So to recap, we're going to have either a live pick'em, like either tomorrow afternoon or Tuesday night, and then we'll have the the reaction to the CFP Wednesday night as well, and then you'll see videos of the the top 25 matchup breakdowns here on the YouTube page. If you're on Twitch, again, if you're watching this on Twitch, you can find that on the YouTube page as well. But that being said, guys, thank you guys so much for sitting through. In terms of the college football playoff race, it's heating up. It's getting exciting. That being said, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you made it all the way through, you're the real MVP. I really do appreciate that from the bottom of the heart. go ahead and do me a couple of favors real fast. Hit that like button, and then also hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new. In addition, if you're on Twitch and you enjoy what you see here on Twitch, man, make sure you go ahead, hit that follow button on Twitch. I would truly appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. With that being said, guys, this is Jake, the main host, founder, and CEO of College Football Red Zone. Gonna sign off for tonight, but hopefully you guys are all out there having a good day.